Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. Today is Saturday, June 6th, and here we are, as every morning, getting together to share the latest news and headlines as they affect our lives here in Puerto Vallarta. If you're new to these broadcasts, my name is Paco, and I encourage you to write the word new in your comment. Let us know where you are. Let us know how you found out about Coffee and Headlines, and let us know how we can help you. We're getting together here to exchange information, knowledge, expertise, ideas on how to stay creative, how to stay healthy, how to stay sane, and how to stay positive during these very interesting times that we're living in. It's nice to see some of our regular faces here. Sharon, Craig, good morning, David, Mihal. Saturday, absolutely. Luna, as always, is here being very attentive to everything that's going on. Let me see if I can get her excited. Come on, Luna, take notes. No notes? Okay, there you go. Fine. Luna will not be taking any notes today. She's listening, though, of course. Great to see Cheryl. Great to see everyone, actually. It's always great to see all these familiar names and faces that I know I'll start running into in the city, and we'll have great hellos. It's great to see you again, Lynn. It was great to have you yesterday and listen to all your information and knowledge about how we can stay positive during these times. Pam, I hope you're getting some sleep. It's always great to see that you have a chance to join us here when we're talking about so many relevant things. Today, we're going to continue to track our main ideas. And of course, our main ideas and news have to do with COVID-19 and the uncertainty that we're facing as we end another week and we look at the different guidelines that have been established by the federal government and also by our state. Where do they match? Where do they not match? We're going to take a look at that in a little while. We're also going to be continuing to follow up on the case of construction worker Giovanni López, who was killed here in the state of Jalisco, allegedly in the hands of policemen in his municipality. We're going to touch base on the sad situation happening at Los Mangos, where 5 employees were unlawfully dismissed without their severance package. And we're going to touch base on a couple of fun, important things so that we can have something leisurely to look forward to. So, Lynn says, when do I get my ice cream? Well, that's a great story. I don't know if Lick's ice cream has reopened. I know that they were waiting to follow their procedures to be able to get their sticker. I know that stickers have started to be distributed here and there. I've heard of a couple of businesses that are getting their stickers. So maybe if Catherine is there she is. Catherine is still delivering. And Lick's is hoping to open on June 15. Rest assured that when Lick's reopens, we'll report. Oh, and speaking of reporting, one of the things I also want to report is about this wonderful lunch experience I had yesterday at Cha Restaurant in Versalles, a fairly new restaurant in Colonia Versalles that was recommended to me by another Versalles restaurant. We went yesterday for lunch, and I'll tell you about it when we get to that. But first, let's take a quick look at the hard news. Well, as we explained last week, the city of Mexico City, is going to be releasing updated information for the entire country as to what the colors of our states are as they relate to the COVID-19 pandemic and what kind of activities we're able to pursue. And this week, by the end of the week, the whole country is in the red, which means that in terms of this panorama, this means that only essential activities are allowed to operate by the book. And I say by the book because, again, what is able to open and not has been extremely confusing both locally and nationally for the last week and a half. So I wish I had clear explanations to give you, but this is what was released. If you feel like you don't understand and you're frustrated, just think about what's going on in the state of Yucatán, where they turned their traffic light or their stoplight to orange, but this has not been reported by the federal government. So is the state of Yucatan working on their own, or are they working based on the Mexico City guidelines? And these guys have just failed to update their stoplight or the stop sign or their colors. Is a mystery. What we know is that we have to continue following the guidelines that we know, because that has not changed at all. We also know, we had reported last week that governors of several states, including Jalisco, but also including Coahuila, Colima, Durango, Michoacán, Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, and Guanajuato, all these states are working together to come up with their own strategies because they failed to accept the guidelines set forth by Mexico City last week. They said, we love your colors and we love your stoplight, but your stoplight and your assessments do not reflect the reality of our states. We're going to work on our own. And now the same coalition of states here in Mexico is asking to have an open dialogue directly with Mexican President Andrés López Obrador, and not through the Secretary of Government. They're asking to be able to connect directly with the president so that they can reach a common ground in terms of whether these states or the rest of the country can and should follow federal guidelines for what opens or what doesn't open, or if the states can indeed follow their own guidelines. So again, I'm just giving you all kinds of colorful information that is not very useful for our bottom line, which is what can we do today to protect ourselves and what can we do today to make a living. But I'm just telling you, like I'm finding it in the headlines of major newspapers in Mexico. I also learned from Vallarta Independiente that the governor of Nayarit, Antonio Echevarría Garcia, has informed yesterday that car wash businesses, office supplies, stores, and bookstores can open now in the state of Nayarit, following the strict guidelines that we already know. So if you happen to have a car wash business or an office supply store or a bookstore in the state of Nayarit, you can open. Yay. Meanwhile, we learned that the World Health Organization has published a new set of guidelines regarding the use of face masks. The World Health Organization has not indicated in the past that they were mandatory or important or fundamental. They have always indicated that they were part of the precautions that you can take. But now the World Health Organization, it's changing their tune. They are recommending that if you live in a country where the virus is spreading in a massive way, in other words, it is not contained, and where it's not possible to maintain social distance, that yes, you want to be wearing a face mask. But guess what? We've been doing that for 2 months. So again, these are news that don't necessarily change what's going on locally. Because we're about to enter the next major topic, I'm going to take a quick look at your comments to see if there are any questions that I can answer at this point. I see a lot of good mornings, and I love the good mornings. Boom, 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 boom. I see a newbie, Dawn Lynch. Good morning, Dawn. Welcome to Coffee and Headlines. Here we are. I hope you have your coffee. I hope you're enjoying the broadcast. If you have any thoughts or comments, please let us know. Sherry Cooper, this makes two of us. I can't hardly wait to hear what I'm going to say. And it all has to do with ice cream, of course, and coffee and good news. Let's see. Oh, Nancy, how kind of you. I like my news too, although sometimes they're not good news, but they're important news to share. Okay, I don't see big questions. So let us talk about the sad case of Giovanni López, which just gets more and more complicated. If you're not up to date, Giovanni López is a construction worker that was detained in a municipality of Jalisco, Itztlahuacan, in early May, allegedly or apparently because he was not wearing a face mask. His family was instructed to get him back from jail the following day. However, the following day he was sent to the hospital in an emergency case, and he died on the way to the hospital with signs of torture in his body and apparently a bullet wound. This has taken a month to surface in the major journalism arena, the political arena. So when this started coming out in the news, a lot of people expressed their rage. There have been a couple of manifestations in the capital of our state, in Guadalajara City, and the first one was very violent. The governor blamed the government of López Obrador, our president, for sending professional hecklers to incite violence. The president has said, if you have any proof, show it to me. And now the family of Giovanni, the construction worker, is alleging that the reason why the policemen were enraged actually is because Giovanni started filming their actions, which we know is legal if you're out and about, but the policemen got really upset about this fact, and that may have contributed to the reason why he was violently treated in jail. This is an ongoing situation, and it's a situation that has brought a major headache to our governor because he's trying to ensure that we can move forward through the new normal. He was totally not expecting this. And again, as I mentioned, the protests in Guadalajara got really, really ugly with police vehicles set on fire. Some of the protesters have been detained, and indeed, some protesters were not even from Guadalajara, which leads the general public and the politicians in Guadalajara to assume that this was led by professional hecklers. But again, there is a lot of he said, she said going on surrounding this whole situation. Meanwhile, Governor Alfaro has expressed his frustration because, unfortunately, some of the video and photographs captured during the demonstrations do show an excessive force of use of force by Jalisco police. So the governor is very frustrated because, on the one hand, he has been asking for a very strict following of the guidelines to stay home and maintain safe distance and use the face mask. And now he says in his statement that his instruction was for policemen to act sensibly and with prudence. And unfortunately, a few policemen got out of hand. Again, hardly the kind of situation that you want to have to deal with while you're resolving the pandemic in the state. Whereas the governor of Jalisco originally finger pointed our president, saying, our president sent all these extra people to demonstrate. Now he has changed his tune ever so slightly. In an interview, he said that he respects President López Obrador tremendously, but it is some of the people that surround him from his party, the Morena party, that are trying to create violent situations in the rest of the country. A little bit of perspective as to why this is happening. Mexico will have presidential elections in 2024. And of course, the ruling party right now, which is López Obrador's party, Morena, they want to stay in power. And on the other hand, our governor, sorry, I get all these characters all messed up. Our governor is clearly profiling himself to become the president of Mexico. I'm sure that his party, Movimiento Ciudadano, would like to see him go there. So is it true that all these politicians are starting to plot things for an election that is not coming for 3 years? I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you because I'm not a politician. I don't know exactly how they maneuver through their own process. But I cannot say that it is not possible either. Meanwhile, our president, López Obrador, maintains his posture, saying, if the governor of Jalisco has something to complain about, he'd better have have proof of it. So again, we will have to see how this unfolds. Meanwhile, the mayor of Ixtlahuacan, which is the municipality in Jalisco where Giovanni López was killed, he was supposed to appear in front of the state's attorney's office, the prosecution office, yesterday to answer questions about the killing, and he didn't show up. He didn't show up. And we also learned from some relatives of the family that the family members of the construction worker that died were offered 200,000 pesos to not make the situation public. So this whole situation with the mayor of Ixtlahuacan, the police brutality that took place there, and the headaches that this whole situation brings to the current situation is just going to continue to create headaches for our governor and our government. One of the consequences of this is that our state, the state of Jalisco, is now embarking in a zero tolerance policy for people that are not where they're supposed to be, for businesses that are not supposed to be open that are open, et cetera, et cetera. So because we don't have any certainty as to whether we're doing better or worse than we were last week as far as COVID-19 is concerned, and because of all the unexpected violence that has surfaced in our own state, there's going to be very little tolerance. So if you were thinking creatively about going to the beach when you're not supposed to, if you were thinking creatively about opening your business when you're not allowed to, think twice. Because everything seems to indicate that the state is not playing games, and they're just going to act accordingly. Of course, the governor has this challenge of making sure that if police are involved, the police don't behave in a violent way, and I think everybody's getting that message. Bottom line for Jalisco, bottom line for Puerto Vallarta, again, we have not seen any official information coming out of the governor's Facebook page or the Jalisco Facebook page in terms as to what the situation is going to be like this coming week, even though we already know that the state of Jalisco has more active COVID-19 cases going on right now than the governor would like there to be. But again, we're trying to stay away from specific numbers because we know, number one, they fluctuate. Number two, they can be consistent or inconsistent. And number three, they bring a lot of unnecessary stress to our livelihood. So this is what I see right now. Sherry Cooper asks, do the people in Puerto Vallarta want zero tolerance? Sherry Cooper, Puerto Vallarta has over 300,000 people in it, so I cannot answer for 300,000 people. I know that there are a lot of people that get what needs to happen, and there are a lot of people that don't get what needs to happen, and that's just the nature of the beast. With that thought in mind, I am going to head over to some leisurely stuff. And we start by looking at the weather just because it's starting to get that time of the year when it gets interesting on a daily basis. Today we're at 80 degrees. Feels like 85 though because humidity is at 87%. Our temperature in Celsius, if you follow Celsius, is 26% right now. And I want to start our leisurely spot by looking at this comment that Geoff has just sent me, because he says that Cosmo is enjoying Coffee and Headlines again today with him. And I am happy to know that because yesterday, Geoff sent me this awesome photo, and I know that this is not fake news. It is actually him and Cosmo enjoying the show. So this is really sweet. I'm always happy to see how you guys enjoy Coffee and Headlines when you get a chance to do it. I also want to tell you that I found a really interesting article about the Mexico Secretary of Culture. The Secretary of Culture is working closely with the Secretary of Health here in our country to work together to develop a guide for reopening cultural spaces. Of course, the Secretary of Culture knows that we're not going to be going to the theater. We're not going to be going to the movies, although I did read that Cinepolis is about to start opening some theaters in a couple of states. Um, Secretary of Culture has put together a document that helps venue owners of many different kinds on how to prepare themselves for the moment in which they're able to open. And this is available as a PDF. Of course, it's available in Spanish, but it is an interesting read about recommendations for different types of venues and theaters. It has a big introduction about all the people that are involved in cultural spaces, whether they're bookstores, auditoriums, libraries, archaeological sites, theaters, and so forth and so on. And these are recommendations. This is not the law. And then it talks about how these recommendations relate to the colors that the federal government has stipulated in their follow up of the pandemic. It talks about safe distancing, and then it goes into general recommendations for venues and cultural spaces. And then it talks about open spaces, and then it talks about closed spaces such as theaters and projection halls and so forth and so on. Again, these are just guidelines. There is no indication that any of this stuff is going to be open in the near future. However, being mindful of what these guidelines are is a good way to foresee what will be expected of these types of spaces in the future. Another recreational headline: yesterday I informed you that the second portion of the Malecon, that was the one that goes from Los Arcos to the Rio Cuale, was reopening yesterday. However, the restaurant owners and business owners have changed their minds. This portion of the Malecon is not going to be reopening until Monday, and only with a restricted access, so that you can get into all those restaurants and shops that are located over there that have their doors or their access facing the Malecon. The Malecon continues to be closed to the public. Let's take a quick look at some of your questions. Yes, Mario, you're right. It's beautiful weather. It's starting to get a little bit warm. Clay asks, are boats being allowed? By the book, no. Boats are not allowed for touristic purposes, because nothing that has to do with tourism is open. If you live in Yelapa and you need to come into town to buy groceries and you hire a boat to bring you, I can understand that being a reason why you would hop in a boat and go and come back and so forth and so on. After all, there's no other way for them to have access to things. But can you hop in a boat to go enjoy a day on the beach or to go exploring? No, boats are not open just yet. We still see no activity on the bay from our condo. Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff going on. Candace had a lovely dinner at Barrio Bistro. That's good to hear. Barrio Bistro is here in Versalles, and it's a very comfortable restaurant that I would certainly recommend, not only because of their food, but because they have open spaces. And I don't know about you, I'm having an easier time considering the possibility of dining out in open spaces than in places where there's no ventilation. But again, that's just my choice, and it's not related to any kind of official guideline out there. But I am glad that they're open and that there's business going on there. Can I share the link for the cultural recommendations? Cindy, if you're new to these broadcasts, please know that all the links of everything that is discussed are shared with the show notes. The show notes get updated and uploaded to this video just after this broadcast is over. Then you can also find them on the website paco-ojeda.com, and you can also find them on the YouTube channel where the broadcast goes. So if you give me a few minutes right after the broadcast is over, I usually upload all those bookmarks for you to enjoy at your leisure. Have you come across any requirements for people traveling from Guadalajara? This is the second time that somebody has brought this up to me. I suppose this is happening because other countries, I've read and I've watched on television in the news, other countries expect you to self-isolate for a number of days if you're traveling into that country from another country. Mexico does not have any of such guidelines in place. If you're coming into Mexico from any city or any way, they will probably test you on the airport, on the bus terminal, and so forth and so on. But once you're here, there is no official expectation that you will self-isolate. I have a friend that just came back from the United States that has chosen to self-isolate in a separate apartment because he has a member of his family living with him that is a senior citizen. So this was a voluntary thing. I have not seen any kind of official guideline. Another morning, Rene asks about cha. Let me tell you about that. First of all, it was a wonderful lunch. I had the best, and I mean the best chicken mole enchiladas I've had in Puerto Vallarta ever. And what's going to happen is I took photographs. I interviewed the chef, a very nice, very wonderful young man, told me the origin of the restaurant, why he decided to open it, what he was doing before. And all of this information is going to go into the first article that I've written for the website in a long time. I'm going to be writing this between this afternoon and tomorrow morning. So if you want to read it, you'll be able to read it tomorrow, whether you choose to click on the link or whether you choose to subscribe to the newsletter that we send out every week. Every week from our website, pacoojeda.com, we send out an automatic newsletter that includes all the show notes for every day that we broadcast Coffee and Headlines. And moving forward, it will include as well an increasing number of articles that I'm doing about places that I'm going to around the city. So I highly recommend Cha. It is a wonderful place to have lunch or early dinner or breakfast. And tomorrow in the article, you will see why. Let's see. Paul is here. Of course he is, because I spent some time with my dear friend Paul yesterday. I'm a happy person. And as Paul is saying, they checked his temperature, but no, you're not expected to self-isolate in any way that I know of. And this pretty much wraps up our broadcast for today. Tomorrow, as you know, is Sunday. And for those of you that have never been to Coffee and Headlines before, Sunday is Sunday Fun Day here. We have no news. We have no boundaries, and we we just behave silly and goofy and laugh, and all we do is have a fun broadcast. So nothing is sacred. No one is safe from Sunday Fun Day, and that happens tomorrow at the usual time. I still don't know exactly what we're going to talk about. We've had two very juicy Sunday Fun Days talking about Mexican curse words, but again, we don't want to make it a habit, and we will be looking forward to some kind of surprises. I want to talk a little bit about some of the shows that I've been watching on Netflix. Oh, and I forgot to give you an update about the Los Mangos Public Library. I'm sorry about that. That situation is still murky, and it will continue to be murky. I still have not seen any local headlines mentioning it, again, because most local newspapers are not used to speaking critically or very critically about local nonprofit organizations. We don't have that culture of questioning, unfortunately. But I do know from people associated with the library that the board of directors at the library has reached an unofficial settlement with at least one of the workers and offered a higher amount for her to get more of a severance package, which is still not the amount that is recommended by law. I understand that the negotiations are going on quietly, discreetly, as always, with some of the other employees. My advice to you, again, and I'm going to repeat this ad nauseum, if you are involved with a nonprofit, you have the right to ask questions. You have the right to ask how your donations are being used, and you have the right to question if you don't understand what is going on. Let's see. Mandy chimes in and tells us about John Buitron will be teaching all about Mexican slang during Puerto Vallarta Virtual Pride. This is all happening starting on Monday. I hope that the schedule is already up. The final schedule, I haven't checked on the website, but we will take a look at it tomorrow because this is going to start just in a couple of days. How exciting. We're going to be doing some live broadcasting tests from Hotel Mercurio tomorrow just to make sure that the signal looks good and the sound is great so that you can all enjoy a fabulous week of Pride-related content, which will include commentary from venue owners. I'm going to be broadcasting live every single day, except for Monday. So it'll be a fun week. And of course, we will continue to do our daily coffee and headlines at the usual time. Mandy says that the final schedule is up. So we will take a look at it tomorrow. And in fact, I will take a look at it today. We will include it on the show notes today so that you can start thinking about what kind of things you would like to enjoy. Again, I hope that you had a good time with Coffee and Headlines for today. And I always appreciate your support, either through spreading the word about Coffee and Headlines or buying me coffee or sharing the broadcasts as they happen. And I also very much appreciate whenever you send me your thoughts, comments, suggestions about specific people that we can and should feature, or new businesses that are trying to get ahead or that are reopening. We want to make sure that we do whatever we can to help everybody in our community move forward through this crazy new normal that we're living. Between now and tomorrow, please stay healthy, stay safe, stay smiling, stay creative, and of course, as always, stay in touch. Have a great Saturday.